So a lot of what I'll be reviewing tonight can be found on the Career Center website. Career Center website is careercenter.risd.edu. And we have a separate section dedicated to career preparation with the following URL here, which is portfolio-demo-reel. So everything that I'll be talking about tonight, a lot of that can be sourced from that page on the Career Center site. So starting really with the basics here, what is a portfolio? You all used a portfolio to get into school, and in many ways, that portfolio for our first year students or even second year students is a great tool to use to freshen up with newer work that you've got going on. But it is worth going through kind of what we mean when we say portfolio in this career context. So a portfolio can be a website on a digital device. That would include mobile devices. The traditional hard copy case that we're all lugging up and down College Hill on first year, that is definitely still a portfolio, still relevant, still exciting to see in its physical glory. And it's also can take the form of a book, especially when we're talking about our architecture majors who will commonly make a bound book for their finished portfolio. And for our motion-based artists, when we're talking about a reel, this is a 1 to 2 minute compilation or edited together footage from various projects to give an overview of what your capabilities are. And it's not to be confused with an individual project, a full-length movie, or documentation. If you've got like movie documentation of a 3D sculpture that you made, that is not what we mean by a reel. So we'll be diving into more detail on these various aspects through the presentation. I'd also like to just add that the presentation, like most of the presentations that we offer through the Career Center, we want it to be as interactive as possible. If there's anything that you have questions about, please just raise your hand. Chances are there are other folks in the room that have the same question. I want to make sure that everybody comes away from tonight with answers to all your questions. So first of all, when to begin? Well, to start with, we might be looking at first year or second year students. And while you may not be doing the work that you hope to do in your final career when you're launching from RISD, there's still some incredible work that's happening in your first year. You're creating, you're experimenting, and it's all giving you this opportunity to practice documentation of your work. This is such a crucial factor for portfolio development that you can work on in your first year or second year and carry on a lot of those sensibilities throughout your time at RISD. So documenting your work with background info, including your concept work or iterative work, this is all really valuable stuff to start getting in the habit of documenting in a portfolio. And while you're doing these things, you're also building excellent production habits as you go on to your more advanced years at RISD to follow through on these habits and keep doing a good job of documenting your work. By your third year to graduation, you'll be following other professional portfolios and other organizations or companies that you're excited about, maybe looking at them critically to try to emulate some of the things that you're seeing that you love about their work. You can also gear your work towards that career path that you're excited about and that you're passionate about. And you'll be really mastering the art of curation. A portfolio is a curated body of work where you're very intentionally selecting the things that the viewer will see. And we're going to get into like the logic behind all of that in a moment. Then from graduation and into the rest of your career, you are in the habit of like taking this amazing asset that you have, your portfolio, your demo reel, and promoting that to all of the channels that need to know about what you're doing. And that would be by demonstrating your career path, you're keeping it up to date with fresh work, you're letting people know that are following you that you've got updates, or they're following you and they're learning about your recent work. And also, we'll just get this plug in here now. We offer portfolio reviews in the spring, and we see many of you returning to school as reviewers. And you'll be witnessing that as you participate in portfolio reviews and you see your fellow alums lining up to offer their perspectives. So online portfolio platforms are probably the most common form of portfolio platform that we support and that's utilized nowadays. And so I wanted to get through a series of like some of the leading portfolio platforms. This is by no means an exhaustive list. We're not going to be here all night showing all gazillion portfolio platforms, but this covers a good range that I just want you to all be mindful of. And so Cargo Site. Cargo Site is available to RISD students. As a matter of fact, they have reached out to RISD with a discount code, and I'll be glad to follow up if anybody needs that code, but we have sent this to all students and we'd be glad to reshare it with you anytime. It is popular among RISD students. It has its own kind of look and feel. And it's very popular with RISD folks. Adobe Portfolio is also popular with RISD folks, where you do have free access to the Adobe Creative Suite. The Adobe Portfolios does fall within that umbrella, and you do have access to use it to build custom sites to your own liking. Behance has been around for quite a long time, also owned by Adobe. And Behance has some excellent advantages where it does have like a community basis to it, where there are many users on Behance that all can be found through the network. A relative newcomer is, sorry, we have the ArtStation website builder, which is also available. The Wix editor, which does have a monthly cost. So whenever I do find these costs, I'll be posting it up here just for your own awareness. CarbonMade is an excellent portfolio platform, also with its monthly fee. Squarespace. And new to our office is Framer, and Framer has a really excellent interface that is very modern, kind of a newcomer and very exciting platform. And Portfolio Box, which does offer a vendor component to allow you to sell your work through the platform. And so we do get this question from time to time, what platform is the best? And really, of course, it is a personal decision. I would offer some proposed goals, though, or criteria that you can consider when you're out there looking at portfolio platforms. So one is the visual format and functionality. As you're looking at each of these platforms, you can see example accounts on the platform. I would encourage you to check them out. With your critical eye, you'll quickly realize that there is common conventions, common formatting techniques, common limitations that you'll spot as you're looking at the different accounts on various platforms. So I think your first and foremost concern would be that the visual fits with your work and the functionality is suitable to your work and your preferences. Secondly, of course, you want to be really critical about what the viewer's experience is. So it should be easy for your viewers to navigate your portfolio. It should be mobile friendly. Of course, we would love it if all of the curators out there in the world and art directors and hiring managers were using a large screen, looking at your work in high resolution. But practically speaking, there are times where these folks are fitting in viewing portfolios maybe on the train or in some kind of situation on their phone. So it's always good to have a mobile friendly platform. And most of them are at this time friendly to mobile platforms, but it might be something that you want to check out for yourself on your phone when you're evaluating platforms. And this should be easy for you to author. You know, if you are selecting a platform that's difficult for you to work with, that slows you down when it's time to upload photos, that you feel like you're wrestling with and hitting the limitations of it every time that you're trying to do a post, that is sapping your creative time and energy where you should be focusing your busy life on all of your studies and your studio time at school. So sometimes probably the most extreme question that I hear is from someone that's a fine artist that says, should I code my website for my portfolio from scratch? And, of course, the answer is, well, if you're not trying to be a web designer, then there's absolutely no reason to be coding your website from scratch. Use something that's easy to use, right? If you're a fine artist, it's all about your hand and your fine art and your images, being able to see that very easily and clearly. So I'll just harp on this just a little bit, but just to restate, please make sure that this is something that's easy and almost effortless for you to author. It's going to be the key for your success. This can become a chore, and if there are hurdles to get in your way, it's just going to be one of those other reasons why you're not keeping up with your portfolio website, okay? And there are different types of platforms. We could be talking about a standalone independent website where you have full control over your portfolio. On the other hand, we could be talking about a community forum like ArtStation or Behance, where there are some limitations to how the work displays and shows. However, you're joining a community of people where other folks on the platform may be engaging with your work. Or if it's a common popular place for people to go and seek creatives, they might go to that platform and find you by a tag relating to your work, such as ceramic artist or UI designer or motion artist or architect or something in that nature. And then versus the third type, which is a marketplace, where it is geared for you to be able to sell your work. And it's not just to show your work, it's also to sell it. And these are important factors, because if we're going independent, while that does give you a lot of control, it does also require that you're making the effort to promote your website and get it out there and get it discovered. So with the platform considerations kind of behind us, right? We talked about a lot of different platforms, a lot of different characteristics and opportunities. Now it's thinking about the content and finding inspiration and where you want to take this, how you want to develop your work and your aesthetic. And so a good place to start is within your RISD community. The RISD Alumni Relations does maintain an excellent feed of the goings-on of alums out in the world. You can always find the alumni resources through their website, alumni.risd.edu. In addition to news, they also have a mentorship platform that you can join to try to connect with alums, which could lead to advice about your work and your portfolio or future engagement. But it's always a great idea to be looking to your fellow RISD people out in the world who have gone through similar experiences to you. And they may also be exceptionally welcoming to you if you were to reach out to them directly through their website, if there's contact info, or if you were to find them on other social media sites. So that's always a great place to look. Behance I had mentioned before. While Behance has been around for a very long time, one of the really useful features of Behance is that you can search for RISD accounts on Behance. And Behance also has this pull down where you can select the type of profiles you want to view or the types of projects you want to view. This gives you like this excellent visual overview of various projects under the discipline of your choice. And as you investigate a certain project, you could then also like click to the exact designer or artist that's responsible for it. Many of these artists will feature their own separate website or portfolio that you can investigate further. So I always love it because visually you're able to tune into the work that really gets you excited, and you can go very quickly through the various projects to find ones that resonate with you. We've also noticed that for alums, they will maintain a baseline presence on platforms like this, even though they may have a prolific career with an amazing dedicated website that's very active and very professional. Maintaining some kind of baseline activity on these forums is a way to get some cross promotion where users may, or rather viewers may find artist on a platform like Behance and then go off to their respective independent website to learn more. Instagram, while we're talking about alums and discovering them, looking them up on Instagram is also another great visual channel for you to be searching for current work. And in many cases, like in this case, we have John Key. He's an amazing RISD alum. You could look at John's profile to find all the various cross links to their portfolio and their options to learn more. And this may be surprising for us to be talking about portfolios and to pull up LinkedIn. LinkedIn being like such a straightforward utility for networking. However, it is so useful and so easy to go to the Rhode Island School of Design page, to look at the alumni, to search by keyword, by the keyword that you're seeking. So you could be looking for the discipline that you are within, to find other like-minded folks in your discipline. And then to be able to find these names, search for their portfolios, search for their Instagram accounts. It's a great way to follow up and learn more about them. So more sources of inspiration for you to consider as you're getting ready to build and develop your portfolio website. So let's talk about the aspects of building your portfolio. And this is just to be clear, because RISD is a place of fine artists and designers and also folks that considers themselves both. So I really am intending to cover all of those aspects when we're talking about building a portfolio. So one common thing that I do see frequently, and I should mention that I also have been a recruiter before working at RISD and before working at the Career Center. So I've seen many portfolios, and I do look at it critically as someone that has been in a hiring function before and what those considerations are. And one thing about a splash page is that it is really like it does prevent me as a viewer, or it prevents recruiters or curators or hiring managers it prevents them from getting straight away into your work. And if we're talking about a situation where someone has numerous portfolios to go through, maybe it's a call for work and they've got numerous artists that have submitted their work to get into your show. Or you're a design hiring manager and there's loads of people that have applied to your job. Every second counts. You want to make sure that people are getting right into the work that is going to be most compelling to them. And so, what to show? So, we should be curating your work to suit your career goals. Now, if we're talking about a first year student who's getting their portfolio started, I would argue that your career goals at this point are establishing good production habits, documenting your work, and getting it posted. But this will also address some of the more advanced considerations that you might consider. So the first minute and the first impressions, and I alluded to this as I was commenting on splash pages. So really, that first minute is very crucial, especially when we're talking about fast-paced hiring managers or gallerists that are going through applications quickly. If they don't see something that gets their attention and that appeals to them in the first 30 seconds, there is the risk that we're going to lose their attention. So we want to make sure that, like, worst case scenario, we are gearing our presentation for that first impression. That way we know that we're doing our part to do the best that we possibly can. Quality versus quantity. It is all about quality. Anything that we show that would just demonstrate that I've got lots of work, but maybe if I'm showing something that I'm not really that excited about or that isn't really pulling me in the direction that I want to be going to in my career, that's not carrying its weight as much as something that is like high quality, something that you're proud of, something that is contributing to your career path. And as you get more advanced in your time at RISD, maybe your junior or senior year, as you develop what your career path is, you do want to make sure that like you're presenting toward that career path. Maybe you've even got a scenario where you have a couple of different pursuits. It may be that you may be an illustrator that wants to do commissions and also wants to do concept art or pre-visualization for an entertainment product, entertainment industry. So you may end up having a couple of different versions of your portfolio that are curated for those specific paths. And while you may be good at many things, you want to show the things that you want to do. And I know that this is like thematically kind of similar to what's already been said, but I hear all the time from folks that may know how to do something that's challenging, that is pretty cool that they can do it. Like I'll use an example of a graphic designer that might be good at typography and making their own font. But it turns out that even though they're good at it, they hate doing it and they don't actually want to do it in the future. That is not scoring you points to show your excellent work in fontography and typography. So make sure that you're displaying the things that push you and your career forward into the direction that you want to go in. And showing your creative process is very helpful. I'll give a couple of contexts here. On the one hand, we might be talking about an art director that works in a design studio and is responsible for managing a series of designers in their team. This art director is not going to be able to dole out work to designers and just assume that the designer is going to hit the mark, and when the work is done, it's totally on art direction, totally perfect. No, it's not really like that in the real world. Art directors are accustomed to seeing the work as it's being developed, to course correcting, helping you course correct, to giving you feedback. This happens to be something that RISD folks are incredibly talented at. You are in critique and in studio many times each semester. You are sharing your feedback, using your critical eye to help your peers improve, and you're getting feedback and you're acting on that feedback. Some of it you may be getting opposing input on your work, and you're being tasked with like making the decision on what ideas are going to stick and what aren't. You are essentially becoming art directors. And so sharing the creative process allows an art director to see your ideas from their origin through to completion. And even if it isn't work that the art directors are super psyched on, maybe it's not something that they would want you to do at their studio. At least if they can see that you followed an idea through to execution, it shows them that you're capable of following through. Something that folks here at RISD, many folks take for granted is your abilities to draw. And honestly, your drawing abilities will be so useful out in the real world and in those design studios, where you're able to convey your ideas on the page and then be able to follow through as you see fit. I also wanted to mention that creative process is super relevant for fine art as well. We have heard from curators and from gallerists who have participated in our events that they love to see the process. They want to understand how you achieve your results. This is the whole reason why curators and gallerists go to studio visits. They want to get in there where it's dirty or where it's work in progress or where they're seeing your reference material or they're seeing all the different things, they're seeing your work environment. It allows them to understand more about what you do. And you could also argue that it makes them feel confident. When they see your process and they have a better understanding of it, that earns some trust with them as well. Maybe you end up being represented, and that could be the ultimate for a fine artist. So I'd like to address a couple of common concerns that I hear many times in advising appointments. So I want to do this one type of work, but I don't really have the choice when I'm in studio. And we hear this especially with first and second year students, right? You might be in industrial design and you aspire to do digital interfaces, but you're making ergonomic tools out of wood in your second year studio. You know, I can assure you that when you're displaying your work and these projects that may not be exactly what you want to work on, they do translate well to the folks that have been in your shoes, that have gone to school, that have gone through those times where they weren't able to choose what they worked on, and they'll be able to see the elements of promise in your work, even though it may not resemble exactly what they're doing at their company. So it's always a great idea to show what you've got. Another common concern is, again, maybe for somebody that's starting out, they may not have a number of projects that makes them feel right. Like maybe they wish that they had 20 pieces to show, but they only have 6 pieces to show or something of that nature. Showing your work and again, following that guideline of quality over quantity, that is what is most important. I'm going to get into that point specifically. So I was just showing a piece by Reiko Murakami, and this is Reiko's website. And I did get some info from some of our alums and some folks that were willing to provide me with some quotes to share with all of you in this presentation. And so we can read through this. So from Reiko, it's about knowing your client or whoever you're trying to get a job from. I will add does Reiko does exhibit. She participates in art fairs. She does get into gallery shows. So Reiko is truly a hybrid artist, and It may not be getting a job, it may also be getting into a show or getting a curator to view your portfolio. So she suggests that you customize your portfolio according to what they're looking for. There's no perfect portfolio that addresses everyone's needs out there, all of the viewers' needs. So it's a great point to be like customizing your presentation based on the viewer. You only need 5 to 10 pieces that display consistent quality and focused. Make sure that your best pieces aren't just at the beginning, but they're also at the end so that you end with a lasting impression. And so I do really appreciate that, especially about the count. I do know that Reiko is very productive. Reiko has numerous works, and yet even for Reiko, she's focusing on 5 to 10 pieces to get the point across about her work. Simplicity. And simplicity is also an aspect that I think should be considered for showing your work. Now, there may be exceptions to this if you're a technologist and you want to get into web development and actually you want to do very innovative things in your portfolio through the website interface. Of course, then this isn't going to work for you. But for many of us that are just simply using the portfolio as a vehicle to display your work, almost like the portfolio is transparent so that it puts the spotlight on your work, simplicity is a good goal to have when you're starting out and building your portfolio. It should be curated, so you've considered the pieces that you're sharing carefully. It should be intuitive to use, and it should be focused. Image quality is also another key consideration for your work. Here we're showing an alum, Anina Major, who's a ceramicist. And Anina, from the start, has always put a lot of effort into the photo documentation of her sculptures. What I also really appreciate about the way she displays her work is that not only are the images really high quality, like they're lit well, it's fine details that you can see clearly, but also it's presented in context. It's almost like the way that she lit it and showing it being exhibited is also proof that she has made it. She's being shown in a show. So there's like another added dimension of information there. But I think you could also say that Anina was very intentional about how the scene was lit and it enhanced the presentation of her work. So, you can really get creative, even though we're talking about photo documentation, there are ways of getting really good at that documentation and making sure that it enhances your art direction and your presentation. Anina also offered a quote for this presentation, and she suggests investing in professionally photo and video documenting your work and getting it as accurate as possible. So in this case, Anina has said, hey, I'm a ceramicist. I don't need to be a professional videographer or photographer. I'm going to enlist the pros to get the results that she's really looking for. Most times the first encounter with the work, so the first encounter with getting to know who Anina is through her images on her portfolio. And we can especially say that that's the case when we're starting out. We don't have name recognition yet. We are displaying and leading with our work in our portfolios. Should also mention that there's an alum and professor, Clara Liu, who graduated from illustration. And Clara has an incredible website with resources for developing portfolios. And in particular, this page goes through the basics of how to photograph your work. And it includes lighting and camera tech. Even though this may be utilized by high schoolers trying to get their portfolio ready for school, I've seen it myself and I have photo skills and her doc, her her instructional materials here are exceptional. So we've covered documentation and documenting your work, and part of that is also like providing the full story. So it's not enough to just have the images. It's to go that extra yard and make sure that you're sharing the background info, which can include details like if it has a title, or perhaps it was a project that was made in a studio class and you're sharing the date and even the semester that this work was created. Uh, Sometimes you may be sharing a design prompt or the creative objectives that you had with a given piece. Um, Lots of different ways to share information about your work, and it's not going to be the same for everyone. It's going to be selecting the background details that are going to give the viewer a better understanding that's relevant to them and what they want to know about you. With the creative design process. So we've talked about the background info, but also sharing process images. So here's an example of some process images and what you can include as part of a project could be concept drawings. It could be the research, visual reference, mood boards, the iterations that you've worked on to get to your final result. It just gives people a better understanding of your creative process. And again, like if we're talking about curators or we're talking about art directors, these are folks that are going to be really paying attention to how you got to where you ended up, right? Jason Bean is a art director, a graduate from RISD, and he did work on the World of Warcraft game here. And we were able to get some specifics from him about sharing your creative process. So I'll just read through it briefly. Take them on your creative journey. It is always great to see a well-presented process breakdown from initial prompt through reference, research, to early exploratory thumbs to finished work for at least one piece. It is great to get that background info. And, we've talked a lot about documentation and about listing background info, showing your process. And, there is one thing that I did look into this year as AI has become more prevalent. I checked in with a alum here, Kevin McGinnis, who is an art director in the video games industry. So that's his specific lens to this issue. But he's mentioned here, I view AI like a Photoshop filter or another program. It's a tool to make great things, but if it's easily seen or is taken over, then there's no way to understand who is holding the leash. I know he probably wrote that quickly, who's holding the leash, but I actually really like that visual because in a sense, you want to make sure that you're the person that's in control using AI as a tool, not the other way around, where AI may be calling the shots on the work. I still think individual craft is important, being able to see the student's critical thought process of why they made the choices they made. If they use AI to then create that vision, I'm all for it. If they rely on AI to visually think for them, then they might as well just do it as a hobby rather than a career. Um, while his feedback there is kind of blunt, I do really appreciate though that there are times where you can use AI as a tool to automate your process or to do aspects of a process that you may not understand, but it helps you to achieve your vision. And I suppose that the conclusion that I've come to at this phase, considering AI and its role in portfolios, is just that you are very clearly labeling it where it may occur in your portfolio. So if you did use AI as a tool for a piece that you worked on, make sure, just like anything else, that you label it accordingly. It would be kind of similar to if you used a 3D model as a reference for a concept drawing and you wanted to point that out, or you collaborated with someone else on a piece. You'd want to make sure that that collaboration is very well identified and separate. All right. And so presenting your portfolio. So we have those situations where we're able to pull out a printed portfolio. And I will also add that, like, as a recruiter, while my company may have relied solely on digital portfolios, either through a website or through reels that would be shown on YouTube or something like that, there was still something really exceptional and really exciting about having an artist show up for an interview with printed work that we could actually look at under light and in the flesh, you know? So even if you are working primarily digitally, there still may be times where you are able to bring your physical work in person or a physical portfolio. And so basic outlook here, if we're talking about fine art, we could be talking about 10 to 20 works that you're showing in your portfolio. For design, you may be showing 6 to 12 projects, depending on your body of work. Of course, quality over quantity, as we've said before. And with the printed portfolio, because it's got a start and a finish, you know, you really are taking the viewer through your work, and it should share some kind of like story as part of your presentation. For a book, as we've seen with architects, you know, this is something that architecture firms are very well familiar with and very excited to look through a architecture book. While we may have been talking about curating your work when we're talking about like some of the other types of portfolios, it's very common for architecture portfolios to have the full project, or at least really represent the various phases and assets that go along with each project. So you may have like 12 spreads for a given project, and your portfolio book may actually be many pages long, depending on how many projects you have. So it is a different kind of project. Having a table of contents is very helpful to have at the beginning, and that might list the name of the project, the date, you know, allowing the viewer to maybe jump ahead if they wish, or to have a sense of like how your portfolio book is organized. A resume on the first or second page is customary. Um, and we have heard from many of our architecture reviewers that are participating in our events that they really do appreciate the uniqueness of RISD architects displaying fine art, their own fine art on the cover, or using it as some embellishment to enhance their portfolios. It's something that they don't always see at other schools. And of course, it's something that's like the nature of RISD, going through that foundation year and making that excellent work can be a really nice effect for your portfolio. Print options for your portfolio book could be Artifact Uprising or Mixam, that's Mixam. And if you were to show your portfolio online, you could use Issue, and that's issuu.com, or Folio HD. Both of those can take a PDF and actually like simulate the effect of flipping pages. Actually, it looks quite nice. It's kind of unexpected, but it is a really cool way to display those portfolios. And as we've talked about with the online portfolio, you may be presenting it in person. Of course, many times you'll be sharing your screen on a Zoom call or something of that nature. So really being comfortable with taking the taking the viewer through your website and maybe even like figuring out in advance like how what your path is going to be through your website. What projects do you want to jump to that you think are most relevant to the viewer or the employer? With a demo reel, and here's an example demo reel over here on the right. We're looking for like a 1 to 2 minute duration, a title card at the start and at the end that includes your name, contact info, and some basics about you can be a nice touch. Subtitles in your clips. So each clip can have like a subtitle that associates with the demo reel breakdown, which is to follow. And that breakdown will be like a label that describes what is being seen in each of those shots. And maybe it also describes like the title of that project, the tools that were used. It may even have a link to the full-length movie version that you could share. Common platforms, of course, are YouTube and Vimeo. But if you have work that's sensitive with intellectual property concerns, you can use secure platforms that are password protected, like Dropbox, Google Docs, and iCloud. We did check in with a FAV alum on the concept of a demo reel, and her thoughts that she wanted to share in this presentation: to choose the strongest parts of your favorite projects that showcase your skills and abilities and reflect the type of work and clients you want to attract. Have fun creating a news story or out of these clips. And remember to keep the reel short and sweet. One, 1 minute and 30 seconds maximum. Focusing on your best work, quality over quantity. So a lot of these universal principles apply. And then beyond the portfolio, we'll be talking about using Instagram. While Instagram is not a portfolio platform, can be a great way for you to be building your following, to share your process, works in progress, to share your world and your vision. And with your profile, you can always like include your portfolio URL so that you are driving traffic back to your portfolio. LinkedIn is also a great place to be building your network. If you make updates to your portfolio, why not make a post about it on LinkedIn so that people are in the know that you've made updates? LinkedIn can be such a great companion to your portfolio. It's like your portfolio is your most recent work and you're in full control. And then your LinkedIn profile has all your latest credentials. It's like a living resume or CV that goes along with your portfolio. Public exhibitions, in whatever form that takes, whether you're doing a work that is a commission or you're doing work that's gotten into a gallery or whatever that is, it's a great way to be promoting and getting the word out about your work and hopefully driving traffic to your website. And then lastly, the aspect of keeping in touch. So for our artists that are out there in the world, professional, they've graduated from RISD, they have a well-established portfolio, as they've got different events and different work that's happening, they are making sure that the news is being spread. That may be through their Instagram account. They may even have a contact list of common folks that follow them and also curators that they are excited about, that they may want to send an email blast to maybe once a month or once every other month with some snippets and information about their world and some updates. So by making the effort of sharing your creative activities with your network, it will be the best way to drive traffic back to your website and to execute on your game plan. Your game plan is to get into that gallery or to get into that company or to promote your startup on your startup venture, whatever it may be. This common practice of keeping in touch and doing some self-promotion in a way that feels right and tasteful to you can be the best way to progress professionally. So I'd like to open it up for questions. That covers what I had prepared for tonight. But I would really look forward to your questions.
Okay. My question is, I currently have a website, but I don't have many descriptions for my pieces, and I was wondering if certain companies prefer simplicity and no like lack of description, or should I include that?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I think the first thing that I would say is that having more information available is always going to be like the safest route, right? So if you can provide background information and details that go along with your work, and I understand your concern about simplicity. So if you can find a way that you feel is tasteful to provide that background information along with your imagery, it's just, think of it this way. For someone that is viewing your work, if you answer more of the questions that might come up in their mind, then it just gives them a better understanding of your work, which may help you to make that connection to them, which could lead to, progress. There's something that also came to mind though that I thought of when you asked that question, which is like, there may be some things about our portfolio and about our work, the way that it's currently set up, that you may want to address and improve upon. Sometimes I'll talk to folks that are like, oh, I don't really have process for my current projects. Should I go and, like find my process, or should I create some process for that work? And I always caution them that like the portfolio is always going to give you opportunities in the future to make improvements. Try not to be looking backward too much in a way that would be like not progressive for you, right? So if you can add some detail about your work easy enough, then sure, that seems like a worthy thing to invest in, a sensible amount of time and just like adding some of that detail. But if it's going to require contortions or like emulating what your process may have been back then, but you actually don't have your process or something of that nature, it's okay to leave the work as it is and just from this day forward, progress more intentionally in the way that you support your work. Yeah, my pleasure.